let's talk about insurance. It's supposed to be our safety net, right? The whole idea is you pay to manage risk. But for so many of us, it feels less like a safety net and more like a maze, almost designed to not pay. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this insurance machine and really try to figure out, why does the system feel so broken?
I mean, have you ever gotten one of those, a denial that just makes you scratch your head? You know the drill. You do everything right, you follow all the rules, you get the pre-approvals, pay your premiums on time, and then boom. A denial letter shows up that feels like it's from another planet. It's frustrating, it's confusing, and sometimes it's just completely absurd.
And when I say absurd, I really mean it. Just get a load of this. This is from a real denial letter. An insurance company sent this to a newborn baby. Let that sink in. They were refusing to cover the baby's 4th day in a neonatal intensive care unit because, and I quote, the baby was drinking from a bottle and breathing on its own. As if that's all it takes to be ready to leave intensive care. And believe me, this isn't some one-off crazy story. Here's another one. A mother's son has a life-threatening allergic reaction, gets rushed to the ER, and they save his life. The mother, by the way, is an ICU doctor herself. And later, she gets a notice from her insurer saying that the epinephrine and steroids that literally saved her son's life were not medically necessary. You just can't make this stuff up. These aren't just little mistakes. This is starting to look like a pattern. So what in the world is going on here? These individual stories, as infuriating as they are, really point to a much bigger systemic issue. We're stepping into an era of automated, high-speed denials. Let's call them robo-denials, and they're changing the very nature of how insurance decisions get made. And the scale of this problem, it's genuinely staggering. A study found that back in 2021, the average health plan denied about 17% of in-network claims. That's almost 1 out of every 5. But then you see an outlier like this one denying a mind-boggling 49% of claims, almost half. We're not talking about a handful of tough cases. This is a fire hose of no.
So you have to ask who, or maybe what, is making all these decisions? Well, more and more, it's not a person carefully looking over your medical file. Nope, it's an algorithm. Automated systems and AI are being used to chew through claims at a speed and scale that was just unimaginable before.
And these aren't some vague, mysterious systems either. They have names. ProPublica dug into one called PXDX, which Cigna uses. Then there are lawsuits swirling around another AI model called NHPredict. That one's used by huge companies like United Healthcare and Humana for taking care of elderly and disabled patients.
Get this. 10 seconds. That's how long it reportedly took one Cigna doctor using that PXDX system to deny 50 claims. That's less than a quarter of a second per case. I mean, come on. Can you really do any kind of meaningful medical review that fast? It might be efficient, but you've got to wonder, at what cost?
Well, according to lawsuits, the cost is patient care, plain and simple. One lawsuit against United Healthcare claims the company knew that something like 90% of the denials from its NHPredict tool were just plain wrong, but they kept using it anyway, basically overriding the judgment of a patient's actual human doctor.
Okay, so this whole shift away from individual review and towards algorithms, it's not just a healthcare thing, not by a long shot. We're seeing the same exact logic pop up in auto insurance, where suddenly your zip code can matter more than your driving record.
And this is where the traditional logic of insurance just completely falls apart. Look at this example from Chicago. You've got 2 safe drivers, both at the same insurance company. Otis Nash lives in a neighborhood that actually has fewer claims paid out, so it's lower risk. Ryan Hedges lives in a neighborhood with more claims. It's higher risk. So who pays more? Otis does, by almost $300 a year. It turns the whole idea of pricing based on risk completely upside down.
And here's the really important part. This isn't just a random fluke. A lot of consumer advocates and researchers are saying this looks an awful lot like a modern data-driven version of redlining, that awful historical practice of discriminating against minority neighborhoods. Except now, the bias isn't drawn on a physical map, it's baked right into the pricing algorithms. The industry actually has a fancy term for this practice. It's called price optimization. And really, it's a total shift in philosophy. The goal is no longer just to base your premium on how risky you are. It's to figure out the absolute maximum amount of money they think you're willing to pay without leaving. So let's break that down. Traditionally, it was simple. Your risk determines your price. But with price optimization, they add a whole new factor into the mix, your loyalty. They use your data to predict if you're the type of person who shops around for a better deal. And if the algorithm decides, hey, this person's probably not going to leave, well, your premium can go up, even if you're the safest driver in the world.
So it's not just about what you pay or whether your claim gets approved. Sometimes the problem is way more basic, just trying to find care in the first place. That insurance card in your wallet might promise this huge network of doctors that, when you actually try to use it, feels like a complete mirage.
There's a name for this too. It's called a ghost network. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's when your insurer's official list of in-network doctors is just packed with, well, ghosts. Doctors who are retired, or aren't taking new patients, or who don't even work at the address listed. Some studies have found that more than half of all the entries in a directory can be wrong. It's crazy.
So why is this such a big deal? I mean, it's annoying, for sure. But as this quote from the Yale Law and Policy Review puts it, it's more than that. It's a canary in the coal mine. It's a warning sign. Because if regulators can't even make sure these basic doctor lists are accurate, what does that say about their ability to protect us from all the other, more complex problems we've been talking about?
And that really brings us to the million-dollar question, doesn't it? When you've got automated denials, pricing that looks discriminatory, and these phantom networks, who's watching the shop? Where is the oversight? Who's in charge here?
This timeline, wow, it says a lot. Way back in 2010, the Affordable Care Act was passed, and it specifically said, hey, government, you need to start tracking insurance denials. They saw this coming. And now, here we are, well over a decade later, and that mandate has basically been ignored. The data is a mess, and as a result, federal oversight is described as nearly non-existent. So where does that leave all of us? It comes down to this really big, fundamental question. The core promise of insurance was always supposed to be a simple transaction. You pay a premium to offload your risk. But if your premium is now determined by your shopping habits and your claims are denied by an algorithm in seconds, is that promise still being kept? If insurance isn't just about risk anymore, what exactly are we all paying for?